He was about to marry the woman his family handpicked. The venue glistened. The guests held their breath. But just before he could say "I do," she collapsed. And her secret? It shattered everything. Have you ever been pushed out of someone's life, only to carry a piece of them inside you? Have you ever been betrayed by love and family? When Nora Hart received a wedding invitation from her ex's grandmother months after a painful breakup, and while secretly pregnant with his children, she knew it wasn't kindness. It was humiliation, dressed in white lace and gold foil. But Nora didn't come to crash the wedding. She came to tell him the truth, before it was too late. Dear cherished Love and Twilight's family, I find it difficult to share this, but our beloved Dr. Phillips has been battling a serious illness lately. Though he's slowly gaining strength, the road to recovery has been painfully slow. Today, I'm asking for something simple but powerful. Please take a moment to leave just one heartfelt word of encouragement. A simple "get well soon" in the comments below. Your love, prayers and presence mean more now than ever before. Let's lift him up together. Thank you, my beautiful family. I am Maxwell, your host for today, and if you are new here, please don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any story. Now, with hearts full of hope, let's begin this beautiful story. The envelope shimmered faintly beneath the morning light, a weightless thing with the power to collapse a soul. Nora Hart stared at it, her fingertips barely grazing the embossed gold seal. Her breathing was shallow, as if the very paper stole the air from her lungs. It was elegant, yes, ivory parchment with delicate ink and a faint scent of gardenia. But no amount of beauty could dull its sting. Inside was the name she had trained her mind to forget. Ethan Vale, the man who once promised her forever. The man who never knew the truth she carried beneath her heart. She unfolded the invitation with trembling hands. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Ethan Vale and Camille Astor, to be held at the Vale Estate on Saturday, June 17th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Reception to follow. Below the gilded letters, the name Margaret Vale was elegantly signed as the host. The same woman who had ended everything. Nora's stomach turned. She was 6 months pregnant, with quadruplets. Ethan's quadruplets. The room around her blurred for a moment, not from tears, but the realization of what this truly meant. Not a kind gesture. Not closure. A calculated humiliation. The kitchen door creaked, and her best friend, Jade, stepped in carrying a bag of groceries. She took one look at Nora's face and froze. "Nora, what's going on?" Jade asked, placing the bag down slowly. Nora couldn't find her voice. She simply held out the card. Jade took it, read it, and gasped. "You've got to be kidding me. Ethan's wedding? You're invited?" Nora nodded stiffly. Jade's eyes narrowed. "Who sent this?" "His grandmother," Nora whispered. The name alone twisted something inside her. Margaret Vale, matriarch of the Vale dynasty, and gatekeeper of everything Nora wasn't. Jade sat down, stunned. "She always hated you." Nora rubbed the swell of her belly. "I know." Jade's gaze dropped to Nora's abdomen. "They don't know, do they?" "No," she murmured. "Only you and the doctor." A long silence passed between them. Finally, Jade reached for her hand. "Then don't go. You don't owe them anything. You need peace, not pain." Nora closed her eyes. But peace hadn't come in 6 months. Every night, Ethan's memory came alive in her dreams. The warmth of his smile, the way he tucked a stray strand of her hair behind her ear, the ridiculous way he said her name just to make her laugh. He had begged her not to leave, and she had. Nora looked down. Her fingers curled protectively around her belly. "I thought I could live without him," she whispered. "But I couldn't. I just didn't want to be the reason he lost his family." Jade squeezed her hand tighter. "You sacrificed everything. Don't let them take more." Nora stared at the card again. Margaret must have known. She must have counted on Nora showing up broken, faded, irrelevant. But she wasn't. She had 4 lives inside her, lives that deserved the truth. "I won't go to make a scene," Nora said slowly. "I'll go to tell him, quietly, dignified, Then I'll leave. Jade's brows furrowed. You're sure? Nora nodded. He deserves to know. He's their father. The next 3 weeks moved both slowly and breathlessly. Jade helped Nora find a seamstress discreet enough to alter a gown that flattered without revealing too much. Her belly, though prominent, could still be masked with the right design. She chose emerald green, bold but not ostentatious. A color that once made Ethan say she looked like spring itself. The night before the wedding, Nora stood in her small apartment, watching herself in the mirror. Her hands rested on her stomach, gently feeling the rhythm of tiny feet fluttering within. "You'll meet him tomorrow," she whispered. "He doesn't know about you yet, but I hope he'll love you the moment he sees you." Behind her, Jade watched with silent concern. "If anything happens," Jade said softly, "I'll be right there." The morning sun cast a golden sheen across the manicured hills of the Vale estate. The vineyard buzzed with controlled excitement. White chairs lined in pristine rows, flower petals scattered down the aisle, waiters gliding like shadows with trays of champagne. It was the kind of wedding dreams were made of, and for Nora, it felt like walking into a haunting. The car pulled to a stop near the garden entrance. Jade stepped out first, then helped Nora down carefully. She could feel the eyes, the stares of people who once whispered behind her back, of women in designer dresses with polite but cutting smiles, of men who remembered her as a footnote in Ethan's past. But she kept walking. Her gown flowed behind her like a silk tide, and with each step she summoned a strength she thought she had lost. Jade leaned close. "You don't have to do this." "I already am," Nora said, voice steady. They took a seat near the back, shaded by a tall stone pillar. She didn't want to be seen. She only wanted to see him. The music began, Pachelbel's canon, flowing through the air like silk ribbon. A hush fell as Ethan walked to the altar, flanked by his groomsmen. Nora's breath caught. Time hadn't dimmed him. If anything, he seemed sharper now, matured by grief or ambition or both. He wore a tailored suit that hugged his frame, but it was his eyes that made her ache. There was sadness there, a deep, quiet longing behind the stoic mask. "He doesn't look happy." Across the aisle, Margaret Vale turned. Her icy gaze swept the crowd, then paused, and found her. Nora met it without blinking. Margaret's lips curved into a tight, pleased smile. The message was clear. You came. You fell right into my trap. But Nora no longer cared about games. The bride appeared next, stunning in a gown of hand-stitched lace. Camille walked like a queen, graceful, radiant, confident. And yet, when her eyes caught Nora's near the back row, something faltered. A flicker of recognition, of doubt. "She knows who I am." Camille looked away, but Ethan didn't. His eyes scanned the crowd briefly, and paused. His lips parted. He had seen her. Nora's heartbeat thundered in her ears. He stared, long enough for Camille to glance at him and follow his gaze. Their eyes met again, and Nora knew in that instant that her presence had shaken the foundation of this day. But she didn't move. She didn't cry. She sat with her chin high and her hand over the life inside her. She wasn't here to fight. She was here to tell the truth. The wedding faded into silence behind her, but in Nora's mind, a reel of memories began to play, fragments of a love she'd buried deep but never truly escaped. There was a time when Ethan Vale was not a distant name on a white invitation. He was hers. Entirely, intimately, irrevocably hers. Their worlds had been galaxies apart. He, the son of wealth and legacy, she, a passionate artist living off commissions and weekend galleries. But when Ethan walked into her pop-up exhibit 3 years ago, looking slightly lost and utterly out of place, everything changed. He hadn't cared that her studio was in a converted garage, or that she wore paint-smeared overalls most days. He said her art was alive, and his eyes never once flickered toward her bank account. Ethan saw her, truly saw her. Late nights turned into mornings. Business calls turned into midnight strolls. They shared ideas, fears, breakfasts on mismatched plates. When he talked about his tech startup, how he wanted to design tools that connected people in more meaningful ways. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. She had loved him long before he whispered it aloud, and when he finally did, it was in a whisper against her neck, wrapped in the scent of lavender and moonlight. But it hadn't lasted, not because they stopped loving, but because someone else never wanted them to begin. Margaret Vale, Ethan's grandmother, was the queen behind the curtain, a woman of precision, heritage, and cold smiles. She wielded the family name like a sword, and to her, Nora was an infection that needed to be cut out. At first, Nora tried. She wore heels to family events. She studied up on wine varietals and boardroom talk, but her authenticity clashed with Margaret's expectations. The matriarch wanted a society bride, not a muralist who painted barefoot in the grass. The final blow came after the launch gala for Ethan's second funding round. The celebration was held at a ballroom dressed in glass and gold, champagne flowing like water. Ethan had just pulled Nora aside, his eyes dancing as he whispered about engagement rings. That night, Margaret cornered her. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a quiet conversation in a hallway lined with ancestral portraits. "If you love him," Margaret had said with clinical precision, "you'll let him go." Nora laughed, thinking it was a joke, but Margaret's expression never shifted. "You don't belong in this world," she said, "and I will not allow you to drag him down with you. If you stay, I promise you, he will lose investors, allies, and respect. I have the power to make that happen. Walk away now, and I'll let you do so quietly." Nora's hands had turned cold. "And if I don't?" she asked, barely managing to speak. "Then I'll destroy you both." That night, Nora returned to the apartment they shared and stared at the man who had only ever been kind to her. She could have told him. He would have believed her, but she remembered the desperation in Margaret's tone, the certainty that Ethan's success could be dismantled by perception, whispers, and well-placed doubt. It wouldn't take much. In a world that prized image over intimacy, she could be framed as a liability. So Nora did what Margaret demanded. She lied, told Ethan she had doubts, that she wasn't ready, that she didn't believe in his future. And when he begged for an explanation, when he knelt and asked if she was throwing everything away, she told him yes. Then she left before he could see her collapse in the stairwell outside. Weeks passed. Then a missed period. Then the test. Then the ultrasound. Four tiny pulses of life. 4 perfect heartbeats. She remembered clutching the edge of the exam table, tears streaming down her face as the technician asked if she was okay. No. Yes. She didn't know. The only man she had ever loved was gone, and inside her grew 4 reasons to never forget him. She thought of calling, of writing, but fear held her hostage. Would Ethan think she was manipulating him, trying to force his hand with children he hadn't agreed to? Would Margaret accuse her of orchestrating the entire thing? And worst of all, what if Ethan had moved on? What if telling him shattered the last thread of dignity she had left? So she remained silent until that invitation arrived. Back at the wedding, the string quartet shifted to a quieter melody. Nora blinked out of the memory, her hand instinctively resting over the swell of her belly. A flutter greeted her touch, one of them moving, as if reminding her they were still there, still listening. She whispered quietly, "You'll know him soon. I hope he'll know you too." From the corner of her eye, she noticed Ethan shifting uneasily at the altar. Something was wrong. Even from a distance, she could feel his discomfort. His hands fidgeted, his shoulders rigid. His smile forced. Did he feel her presence? Did his soul remember hers, even now? A sharp whisper from behind made her flinch. She has no shame, showing up like that. Pregnant too. Unbelievable. Jade turned sharply. "Do you always judge people you don't know?" The women silenced immediately, but their stares remained. Nora didn't turn around. She couldn't afford to break now. She looked forward, not just at Ethan, but at the truth. No matter how today ended, she would no longer hide. "Hello, family. Have you ever walked away from someone because you believed it was the best for them, even if it broke you? Drop your story below. And if you're feeling every twist in Nora's journey, hit like and subscribe for more stories of love, sacrifice, and unexpected reunions. The sky over Napa was a perfect canvas of blue, cloudless and still, as if mocking the storm in Nora's chest. She had never been back here, not since the day she walked away from Ethan's world without a backward glance. But everything looked exactly the same. The sprawling estate perched on a low hill, the vine-covered trellises, the manicured rose gardens, the white stone paths winding like memories through the earth. Too much had stayed the same. Everything except her. The hired car pulled into the lower courtyard, tires crunching softly over the gravel. Jade helped her out, steadying her hand as if they were walking toward a battlefield. "Last chance to change your mind," Jade said gently. Nora exhaled slowly. "I need to do this." "Then let's go." The invitation had instructed guests to arrive through the west garden gate. Most were already seated, their conversations drifting like wind chimes across the air. The ceremony hadn't begun, but music echoed faintly, a string quartet playing something classical and hopeful. Nora's emerald dress shimmered with every movement, the tailored waist just loose enough to veil the full truth. Her heels tapped lightly on the stone as they walked side by side, each step forward feeling both brave and irreversible. As they reached the edge of the seating area, Nora paused. She looked around the garden, people sipping champagne, whispering in designer sunglasses, adjusting fascinators, casting glances of approval or suspicion. A few heads turned her way, uncertain whether to place her in memory or gossip. Her presence hadn't gone unnoticed. "We'll sit near the back," Jade whispered, guiding her toward a shaded corner, partially obscured by a tall urn of white lilies. "You can leave whenever you want." Nora nodded. She sat down carefully, resting one hand over her stomach. Beneath her palm, a soft roll of movement greeted her. The babies were awake, sensing her tension maybe, or simply reminding her they were with her. Across the aisle, under a canopy of wisteria, stood the altar. And then he appeared. Ethan, tall, composed, breathtaking. He walked with his groomsmen, but his shoulders were stiff, his expression unreadable. In the years since she had seen him, he had aged in the most painful way, like someone who had learned how to hide sorrow behind achievement. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, but his hands fidgeted with the cuff of his sleeve. His eyes didn't scan the crowd. He looked inward, lost in thought, perhaps remembering another time. Nora gripped the armrest of her seat, fighting the instinct to leave, to run before everything unraveled, but she stayed. He reached the altar. A hush fell. Then the music shifted. A quartet of violins swelled as Camille appeared at the head of the aisle. The bride was elegance incarnate, a vision of composure and grace, gliding slowly down the path in a sheath of white silk. Pearls shimmered at her throat, her makeup flawless, her expression soft and measured. But her eyes, Camille's eyes scanned the crowd, and when they landed on Nora, they stilled. Recognition passed between them. Camille faltered, barely, but it was there. Her steps slowed for half a second. Her chin lifted, and then she resumed her pace, as if deciding to ignore what she had seen. Ethan hadn't yet noticed. He was watching Camille approach, but not the way a man watches his bride. There was no wonder, no awe, only stillness, a tight smile. A part of Nora clenched. She had loved him too long to not recognize the look of someone making peace with a decision they didn't want to make. Jade leaned close, whispering, "He's not happy." Nora didn't respond. Her throat was too tight. The ceremony began. Vows would follow. Truth would come crashing through that altar like a storm. But not yet. Not yet. Nora focused on her breathing. Slow, even, calm, until the officiant's words rang through the still garden. "If anyone here has reason these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now." Silence. Nora stared at the marble floor beneath her feet. This wasn't her moment. She had promised herself she wouldn't interrupt, wouldn't destroy a day crafted with intention, however painful it was to witness. But her body had other plans. A sharp wave of dizziness struck her. The heat, the stress, the babies pushing against her lungs. Her vision dimmed at the edges. She reached for Jade's hand. I can't. And then the world tilted. The aisle rushed up to meet her. Gasps filled the air. The quartet stopped playing. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Jade dropped to the floor beside her, cradling her head as guests turned in alarm. "Nora? Stay with me. Look at me. You're okay. You're okay." From the altar, Ethan moved. He didn't ask permission. He didn't wait. He stepped off the platform and ran. Camille called after him sharply, her voice a knife in the quiet. But Ethan didn't slow. He pushed past confused guests, his eyes fixed on the woman crumpled in the aisle. Then he saw her, fully, the shape of her, the truth in her eyes, and the slight roundness of her belly now unmasked. Nora tried to rise, embarrassment flushing through her, but her limbs were weak. She whispered, "I'm fine. I'm so sorry." But Ethan was already kneeling beside her. "Nora," he said, his voice shaking. What are you doing here?" He reached to help her up, but stopped. His hand hovered over her abdomen, stunned. He looked at her, then the curve of her body, then back again. "Nora, you're—" She nodded slowly, swallowing tears. "They're yours." Time fractured in his eyes. He stared as if the earth had stopped spinning. The world didn't fall silent. It simply paused. Ethan knelt beside Nora, one hand still hovering between shock and instinct, his gaze bouncing between her eyes and the undeniable curve beneath her gown. His thoughts were a storm, but his body moved with one clarity: protect her. Nora could barely meet his eyes. Her cheeks were flushed, her breath shaky. She struggled to sit up as murmurs rolled through the guests like distant thunder. Jade helped support her weight, whispering, "Breathe, just breathe." But the moment had already escaped its boundaries. The officiant stood frozen at the altar, Camille unmoving behind him, her bouquet gripped too tightly. Margaret Vale emerged from the crowd, her composed expression cracking with confusion. Her gaze followed the direction of the crowd's alarm. Then she saw Nora, and Nora's unmistakable condition. The color drained from Margaret's face. She looked between Nora and Ethan and grasped, in an instant, what had once been hidden. Nora felt exposed. She had come to tell the truth, yes, but not like this, not on the ground, not surrounded by strangers, silks, and sharp stares. She tried to stand, her voice low. "Ethan, I didn't want this. I came only to tell you quietly." His hand steadied her. "You're okay. Don't apologize." Her breath caught as he gently helped her to her feet, still holding her as though she might vanish. His voice softened, almost breaking. "Nora, are the babies mine?" She nodded slowly, the weight of her secret finally lifting. "All 4 of them," she said. "I found out not long after I left. I never meant to keep it from you this long." Gasps spread like ripples. 4, not 1, not 2, 4. The garden pulsed with energy now. Shocked whispers, stunned expressions. Ethan stood still, the revelation pressing into every nerve. His hands trembled at his sides. Before he could speak again, Camille's voice cut through. "You have children with her?" she asked, stepping forward, her tone brittle and rising. Ethan turned. "Camille." Her face twisted, not in confusion, but realization. "You're still in love with her," she said, a statement more than a question. Silence. Ethan's lack of denial was louder than any answer. Camille's fingers loosened around the bouquet, and it dropped soundlessly to the ground. Her expression cracked, pride, pain, fury interwoven, and she whispered, "You humiliated me, in front of everyone." He stepped toward her, gently but firmly. "Camille, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was coming. I didn't know any of this. But I won't stand here and pretend I'm the man you thought I was." She flinched, and then she turned, gathering her dress in her hands. Without another word, Camille walked away, her parents rising to follow in her wake. A wave of guests stood with them, unsure whether to offer comfort or simply escape the uncomfortable truth hanging in the summer air. When the crowd quieted, only a few guests remained seated: family, friends, distant relatives, and Margaret Vale, still standing near the altar, face pale and unreadable. Ethan looked back at Nora. "You should sit," he said gently. But she stood steady now. "I'm okay," she whispered. "I didn't mean to interrupt everything. I thought you deserved to know the truth." "You left without a word," he said, eyes locking on hers. "I waited for answers that never came. And now, all this time, you were carrying our children." Nora swallowed hard. "Your grandmother told me I didn't belong, that I'd ruin your future." I believed her. "I thought if I disappeared it would protect you." Ethan turned slowly toward Margaret. His expression was no longer confused. It was betrayal, quiet and razor-sharp. "You did this?" he asked. Margaret, voice shaking, stepped forward. "I thought I was saving you. I never imagined." She looked down at Nora's belly, and her voice broke. "I never imagined there would be 4 lives at stake." "You said she'd hold me back," Ethan replied, his voice low but raw. "But you never asked me what I wanted." Margaret's eyes brimmed with moisture. "I was wrong," she whispered. "Terribly wrong." Ethan turned back to Nora, stepping close, his voice thick. "You should have told me." "I know," she said, tears rising. "But I was scared. I thought if I returned, you'd take me back out of guilt, or worse, resentment. And I couldn't bear to become another obligation in your perfect life." He reached out, slowly, as if asking permission. She didn't flinch. His hands cupped her cheeks. His thumbs brushed away tears. "There's nothing perfect about a life without you," he said. Nora broke, not into pieces, but into release. She fell against him, sobbing into his chest as he held her like he'd never let go again. People watched, yes, but the moment was theirs. They stood wrapped in memory, truth, and possibility. Ethan whispered into her hair, "I still love you. I never stopped. I would have chosen you, always." She pulled back just enough to look up at him. "I loved you too," she said, "even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt." He smiled, a real one this time. Tears still clung to his lashes, but the tightness in his chest had begun to ease. "We're going to figure this out," he whispered. "Together." And in that moment, something shifted. Not the past, not the crowd, but the future. 3 days later, the sun rose slow and golden over the Vale estate, painting the vineyard hills in a honeyed glow. The wedding decorations were gone, the chairs folded and stored, but echoes of that fateful day still lingered in the corners of every room. The headlines had already begun their quiet parade online, "Wedding disrupted by secret pregnancy," though the media knew nothing beyond glimpses. Ethan had issued a short, respectful statement. Camille had declined all interviews. The world would move on. But for Nora and Ethan, the world had just started again. They sat on the back terrace, just past dawn. The garden around them was still soaked in dew. Nora wore a light cardigan over a flowing robe, her hands cupped around a steaming mug of tea. Ethan sat beside her with his coffee, his other hand resting lightly over hers. The silence between them was not heavy. It was healing. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, glancing down at her belly, where the curve had grown ever more visible since the ceremony. "Better," she said with a small smile. "I think they're excited. They've been kicking more than usual." Ethan chuckled softly. "They probably recognize my voice now. I talk to them every night when you're asleep." "You do?" she said, surprised. "Of course," he replied. "I tell them about the vineyard, about your paintings, about how beautiful their mom is when she's resting." Nora looked away, bashful but glowing. After months of carrying this alone, it still felt surreal to share the weight and the joy. Inside the house, Margaret Vale was quietly directing a pair of decorators as they measured the guest room for nursery fittings. A new chapter had begun, and the woman who once ruled with cold reserve now spoke with tentative kindness and softened eyes. Nora had not yet fully forgiven her, but she had accepted Margaret's apology, and that, in itself, had shifted the energy in the home. Over the last 2 days, Margaret had tried, really tried. She asked thoughtful questions. She brought herbal tea to Nora without being asked. She even offered to attend Nora's next prenatal checkup if allowed. Ethan noticed everything. He had grown up worshipping Margaret's strength, but now he saw the flaws in that strength, the walls it built, the people it pushed away. Still, he respected the effort she was making now. It wasn't perfection, but it was progress. Later that afternoon, they walked through the vineyard. Ethan had one arm around Nora's shoulders, the other gently tracing over the arch of vines overhead as he described childhood summers between these rows. "I used to pretend the vineyard was a maze," he said. "I'd get lost on purpose just to see if Gran would send someone to find me. Did she?" "Not once," he grinned, "but one of the chefs always did. He'd bribe me back to the house with raspberry muffins." Nora laughed, leaning into him. "You were a mischievous little heir, weren't you?" "Still am," he winked. "Only now I've got quadruple partners in crime arriving soon." Her smile dimmed slightly, and he noticed. "What is it?" he asked. She hesitated. "I guess I'm just scared sometimes, about being enough, about raising them right." He pulled her into a stop. "Hey," he said, gently tilting her chin up. "You are more than enough. You always were." "I tried to protect you," she whispered. "But I should have trusted you to protect us. And now I will," he said. "Every day. From here on out." That evening, Margaret joined them for dinner. She was quieter than usual, but when dessert was served, freshly baked muffins, she looked at Ethan and said, "I remembered your favorite." He smiled, a flicker of old warmth returning. Nora watched them. She saw the cracks healing. Afterward, as she and Ethan curled together on the patio under a blanket, watching the stars wink into the sky, he reached into his pocket. A small box. She turned slowly, her breath catching. "This isn't what you think," he said quickly. "Not yet." He opened it to reveal a pendant, 4 tiny hearts etched on a gold disc, suspended from a fine chain. "For each of them," he said. "And for you, a promise that you'll never be alone again." Nora blinked back tears. He fastened it around her neck, then pressed a kiss to her shoulder. "You gave up so much to protect me," he whispered. "Now it's my turn to protect you. All 5 of you." She closed her eyes, resting her forehead against his. "Thank you for forgiving me," she said. He pulled her closer. "Thank you for coming back." Later that night, in the quiet of the nursery room still being assembled, Nora stood in the doorway, hand over her belly. Paintings leaned against the walls, unassembled cribs, a soft lullaby from her phone playing low in the background. She had imagined raising them in a small apartment, alone. Now, the picture had changed. Not because of wealth, not because of a mansion, but because Ethan knew the truth and chose to stay. Together, they would raise 4 lives built from love, hardship, and impossible reunion. The future wasn't perfect. There would be judgment, struggles, sleepless nights, but there would also be joy, laughter echoing down long halls, first steps on vineyard soil, paint-covered hands and bedtime stories whispered beneath the stars. Nora walked back to their bedroom and slipped beneath the blanket. Ethan stirred, pulling her into his arms. No words passed between them. They didn't need to. Their hearts had found their rhythm again. And in the stillness of the night, one simple truth sang louder than all the chaos that came before. Love had endured. Love had survived. Love was finally home. Have you ever believed love could rise from broken pieces? If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes in second chances. Like this video, leave a comment about your favorite moment, and subscribe for more powerful stories from Love and Twilights. Together we celebrate love that heals and truth that frees.